This legislation ends the flow of tax subsidies to any U.S. nonprofit that has clearly violated its tax-exempt status by providing material support to terrorist organizations.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Jason Smith, the man who proudly declared, "I'm not an expert." Folks, I can't think of a more honest statement from this guy. This is the guy the GOP has propped up to lead their charge in the House Ways and Means Committee, a man who can't handle basic questions without throwing a tantrum.
The majority of our Democrat colleagues voted last week to block passage of this bill. Why? Why did they block passage of this bill? Because President Trump won the election.
This sloppy bill thrown before us today contains everything condemned by the Supreme Court. The Treasury Department will be able to unilaterally affix the terrorist supporting label on a not-for-profit group without going to court, without offering any legal proof, without meeting any legal standard, and without giving the target an opportunity even to know the evidence against them. Although the Treasury Secretary must notify the group that it will be designated a terrorist supporting organization in 90 days, unless the Secretary is satisfied with the group's answer, it remains completely up to the Secretary to make a, quote, final agency determination without meeting any standard of proof. Once this scarlet letter and the infamy of being designated a terrorist supporting group are firmly affixed on the organization, the stigmatized then can finally go to a judge, but incredibly, the legal burden is explicitly put on them to prove they are not a terror supporting group, completely reversing the burden of due process which properly belongs to the government. A sixth grader would know this is unconstitutional.
Now let's get into why this bill and Jason Smith are such a threat to democracy. H.R. 9495 isn't just bad policy. It's a direct attack on everything we value as Americans. It's presented as a way to protect us from terrorism, but don't be fooled. This bill is about silencing critics and giving people like Jason Smith and Donald Trump the power to destroy anyone who dares to hold them accountable.
I had a law professor who once asked the class, what are the two most beautiful words in the English language? And he said, due process. I thought the answer might be free speech, but all four of these words are ravaged and devoured by H.R. 9495, which is truly a werewolf in sheep's clothing. Look, it's a federal felony crime today to provide any material support to terrorist groups. If your not-for-profit does that, you're going to prison for at least 10 years, maybe the rest of your life. Losing your 501c3 tax-exempt status is the least of your worries. So if rendering support to terrorists is already a felony crime, then what's this all about? Well, Americans have an absolute First Amendment right to give money to support political groups that don't engage in terrorism, like the ACLU, Amnesty International, Razam for Ukraine, the International Rescue Committee. But this bill would give the new administration unilateral power to designate any of them a terrorist supporting group and strip them of their tax-exempt status while capsizing and inverting the Constitution's guarantee of due process.
Under H.R. 9495, the government could label any nonprofit organization as terrorist supporting without needing to provide proof. No trial, no due process, just a single decision from a political appointee, and that organization is done for. They lose their tax-exempt status, their funding disappears, and their reputation is destroyed. Think about what that means. Groups like the ACLU, Amnesty International, and even humanitarian organizations like the International Rescue Committee could be targeted simply for speaking out against people in power. As Jamie Raskin said, a sixth grader would know that this is unconstitutional.
American civil society and the not-for-profit sector must be protected against political censorship and government vendetta. Now, to get America to bite on this toxic sandwich, They've tucked the rotten, unconstitutional meat in with language clarifying that Americans held hostage are not subject to IRS penalties for failing to pay their taxes on time. The Senate already passed this fine legislation, and we could do that unanimously today. But instead, they want us to vote to give the president Orwellian powers and the American not-for-profit sector Kafkaesque nightmares. I voted against this bill last week. I will vote against it today and tomorrow and next week and for the next 4 years and beyond. I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I yield back.
But it gets worse. This bill doesn't just destroy nonprofits. It's part of something much bigger. It's part of Project 2025, the GOP's blueprint for turning America into a Christian nationalist state. Jamie Raskin laid it out in his conversation with Brian Tyler Cohen. This isn't about protecting Americans. It's about silencing dissent and enforcing an extreme authoritarian agenda. We've already seen glimpses of this agenda. Abortion bans justified by religious beliefs, laws requiring the 10 Commandments to be displayed in schools, and efforts to funnel housing assistance and social services exclusively through religious organizations. And now H.R. 9495 would give them the power to go after anyone who speaks out. This isn't democracy, folks. This is fascism wrapped in a flag and carrying a Bible. And while Jason Smith is out here pushing lies, let's not forget what's happening in his own district. Missouri's 8th is one of the poorest districts in the country. 1 in 5 children go to bed hungry every night. Schools can't afford to stay open 5 days a week. Families are struggling to get health care because the district has the highest uninsured rate in Missouri. This is Jason Smith's record. Instead of fighting for his constituents, he's focused on pushing laws that protect his lies and punish the people who expose them. It's no wonder Jamie Raskin called H.R. 9495 a toxic sandwich. And let's talk a little more about Raskin for a minute. While Jason Smith throws tantrums and spins lies, Jamie Raskin is out here dropping truth bombs. He didn't just call H.R. 9495 unconstitutional. He explained exactly why. This bill flips due process upside down. It forces nonprofits to prove they're innocent instead of requiring the government to prove their guilt. As Raskin said, due process is what separates democracy from tyranny. But this isn't just about H.R. 9495. It's also about the bigger picture. Project 2025 isn't some conspiracy theory. It's a real, dangerous plan to reshape America into an authoritarian state. And the scariest part, they're not even trying to hide it. They want to silence journalists. They want to crush nonprofits. They want to force their version of morality on everyone. And Jason Smith is right there, helping lead the charge. Let's not sugarcoat this. This is a full-blown attack on our freedoms. If we don't stand up now, we might not get another chance. As Jamie Raskin said, this isn't just unconstitutional, it's un-American. So what do? First, we call out people like Jason Smith for what they are. He's not just a bumbling liar, he's a dangerous one. Every time he lies, every time he dodges accountability, we need to hit back with the truth. And we need to make sure the people in Missouri's 8th know exactly how badly he has failed them. Second, we fight H.R. 9495 and the entire Project 2025 agenda. We can't let them turn this country into their personal playground for lies and oppression. And we do that by supporting grassroots candidates who actually care about their communities. Candidates who are willing to take on people like Jason Smith and the fight for democracy. And finally, we need to remind people what's at stake. This isn't just about one bad bill or one bad congressman. This is about the future of our country. If Project 2025 becomes reality, everything we value, freedom of speech, equality, justice, will be on the chopping block. Missouri's 8th district deserves much better. America deserves better. And it's up to all of us to make sure that Jason Smith and his MAGA allies don't get away with this. This isn't just a political fight. It's a fight for the soul of our country. And that is an absolute fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.